And the question today is,
what is the history of cognitive psychology in my own words? Cognitive psychology has been around for the past 150 years. This is actually a short period of time, however, considering the long-standing debate over human consciousness and what that means. The ancient Greeks even discussed this topic, arguing over empiricism versus nativism. Empiricists believed that knowledge came from our experiences, while conversely, nativists believed that we were born with innate knowledge. This is practically the same argument as nature versus nurture, which is still happening today. Although most psychologists would agree that it's a mixture of both nature and nurture, it still begs the question, which has the greater impact on future behavior? Our genetic factors or our environmental influences? It wasn't until much later that cognitive psychology was taken out of this realm of abstract philosophical debate and into the realm of science. This was made possible through German introspection and later, in response, American behaviorism. Introspection is the study of self-reflection, while behaviorism is the study or the psychology of our behaviors. The first psychology lab was actually founded in Leipzig, Germany, and this is what gave cognitive psychology its validity. And let me tell you, there were some strange experiments done at this lab. They would have subjects basically sit and report their thoughts. That's it, their thoughts. These thoughts would be recorded by the scientist, and that was that. That was the experiment. What made this revolutionary was that they were actually using the scientific method, so these experiments could be retested and peer-reviewed. This allowed cognitive psychology to be studied in further depth by other psychologists. American psychologists did not agree with introspection. They wanted a more action-oriented style of psychology, so in response they created behaviorism. Principles and techniques of experimental study were perfected during this time as rats replaced humans as laboratory test subjects, and this was actually behaviorism's most relevant contribution to cognitive psychology. But unfortunately, introspection and behaviorism had their flaws. Introspection was seen as biased and invalid, while behaviorism too rigid. And to be honest, behaviorists were actually pretty hateful. They did not like any other forms of psychology getting in their way. And these are the people who didn't believe in consciousness. They thought it was in the realm of superstition and magic. This disdain was felt by this next group of German psychologists who actually immigrated to America. They brought with them Gestalt psychology, despite suffering a lot of hate for it. Gestalt psychologists believe that the human mind is greater than the sum of its parts. From what I've read, it seems like Gestalt psychology really focuses on the whole. We may know the intricacies of the human mind and how each region of the brain corresponds with our actions and our thoughts and our feelings. That does not mean that we understand human consciousness. Artificial intelligence has yet to catch up to the human mind, and it's 2022. Anyway, there's a chapter later in the textbook on perception, and it goes over the Gestalt principles in detail, and I am super excited to tell you guys about it. Marking the end of behaviorism was a cognitive revolution defined by three main influences. The first was information theory and the information processing approach. Information theory is, quote, an abstract way of analyzing the processing of information. This piece of cognitive psychology typically deals with memory and perception and how we encode the world around us. Next is artificial intelligence and computer-based theories. The goal of AI is to translate human intelligence into digital form. Although computer-based theories have had a minimal impact on cognitive psychology as a whole, we have learned more from studying machine-based intelligence than computers have ever learned from us. The machine uprising is not yet upon us. Lastly is linguistics. Linguistics studies the structure of language. And all you need to know is that Noam Chomsky completely dissed behaviorists. Information processing analysis basically breaks down any cognitive task into smaller bite-sized pieces. Cognitive neuroscience is especially concerned with the neural connections in your brain and how they relate to mental processes. It's the future of cognitive psychology. The end.